Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something I think, well, pretty much everyone bumps up against that struggle sometimes with taking responsibility.
Yeah, whether it's in ourselves or maybe we see it in others. And we've been digging into some really interesting notes and research here.
Right. Looking at neuroscience, psychology, trying to get past the usual labels.
Exactly. Forget just calling it lazy or undisciplined. Our mission today is really to uncover the um, the surprising reasons why our brains and minds sometimes push responsibility away.
Because the core idea we're finding is it's not just random. There are specific reasons, deep ones.
And understanding those is where the power comes back. It's the key to changing that pattern.
Okay, let's dive in then. So, the main idea from the sources is it's not just laziness, there are clear causes.
That's right. Real, identifiable reasons why the brain resists. The material actually lays out 5 specific deep causes. Should we start with the first one?
Absolutely. Lay it on us. What's number one?
Okay, cause 1. Past pain and punishment. This is a big one. It suggests that if, way back, your brain learned to associate responsibility doing tasks, being accountable with something negative.
Like getting yelled at
Uh,
or forced into things.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe being ignored, even blamed for stuff that wasn't your fault, if that happened repeatedly.
The brain basically goes responsibility equals ouch.
Pretty much. It
Yeah.
creates this automatic link.
Yeah.
Responsibility equals pain. And the brain's job one is avoid pain, right? So it just pushes away anything that smells like commitment or duty.
And there's a brain science bit to this too. It's not just a feeling.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The notes point to the amygdala that's like your internal fire alarm for threats and the anterior cingulate cortex involved in conflict detection. They light up.
So when you perceive responsibility based on those past links.
They trigger an avoidance response, a get away from this perceived danger signal. Even if objectively there's no real threat now, it's a learned reaction.
Wow. Okay. So the brain's trying to be helpful in a way, but based on old data, what's cause number 2?
Cause 2 is what the material calls identity mismatch. This is when your inner sense of self, like who you really feel you are, hasn't caught up with the idea of being responsible.
Or maybe you just don't truly believe deep down that taking responsibility actually leads to a better life for you.
Exactly. It feels off, like you're trying to, I don't know, wear shoes that aren't yours. The source says it feels like carrying something that isn't ours.
And the brain just rejects that because it doesn't match the safe identity.
Right. It pushes back because it feels inauthentic or unsafe, like a burden that doesn't belong.
Okay, that resonates. Cause number 3.
Number 3, an overwhelmed system. This is super common. Think about when you're just exhausted, physically drained, or maybe your nervous system is just on high alert from stress.
Your brain goes into survival mode.
Precisely. Its priority becomes basic stuff, conserve energy, rest, avoid challenges, but taking responsibility. That needs your higher brain function.
Your executive functions, right? Planning, deciding, the prefrontal cortex stuff.
Exactly, the PFC, the brain's CEO. And if the whole system is kind of flooded or just depleted,
His CEO's basically put up a gone fishing sign.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The brain temporarily sidelines those complex functions needed for responsibility. It just doesn't have the resources, or thinks it doesn't.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. What's the 4th cause?
Cause 4 is missing the positive link. This happens if your whole life experience with responsibility has just been obligation, a chore, a heavyweight.
And you never got that feeling of, hey, doing this actually feels good, or this leads to freedom.
Exactly. There's no positive association built in the brain. Specifically, no dopamine link. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter tied to reward, motivation, feeling good about doing something.
So if taking responsibility has never triggered that reward feeling,
Then why would your brain seek it out? It sees it only as effort or burden, so it defaults to avoiding it. There's no internal incentive.
makes perfect sense. Okay, and the 5th deep cause.
Cause number 5, learned others will step in. This can happen if you grew up, or maybe you're still in, a situation where someone else always reliably jumps in.
They rescue you or take over the task.
Yeah, or just handle things before you even have to think about them. The brain, being efficient, learns a shortcut.
I don't actually need to carry this. Someone else has got it.
Exactly. It's not necessarily conscious laziness. It's more like a conditioned pathway. The brain learned that expending energy on that specific thing wasn't necessary for things to get done. It's optimized based on past experience.
Okay, wow. Those 5 causes paint a really different picture than just needs more willpower. So if that's the problem, what's the solution? The sources suggest it's not just about gritting your teeth and forcing it.
No,
Oh.
definitely not. That often backfires. Trying to just fix the behavior, the avoidance, without getting to the root. It's like weeding without pulling the root out. The real path forward, according to this material, is deeper. It's about remapping the meaning of responsibility in your brain.
Remapping. How so?
Shifting it from feeling like a burden or obligation to seeing it as, well, as your power to choose.
Responsibility is the power to choose. That's a big shift.
It really is. And the insight is, the more you consciously choose to take responsibility for your actions, your life, the more energy you actually reclaim. Energy that was being lost to fighting it or feeling helpless.
So it's not about duty, it's about being the creator of your experience.
That's the term used, yeah, being a creator. And this ties into things like manifestation, building the life you want. Your brain needs to feel, I'm the one choosing here, I'm managing this.
Otherwise, if it feels like something forced on you,
Then your energy kind of leaks out. Your internal system isn't aligned with making things happen purposefully.
the sources had that example, didn't they? About being forced into things as a kid, like tutoring or something.
Exactly. That's a powerful example. Being repeatedly forced into activities you genuinely didn't want creates a really deep, painful association with responsibility itself, with taking action that wasn't your idea.
Because it felt like your own will, your choice, was just steamrolled.
Uh-huh. The material frames this as a kind of trauma to your autonomy. Your sense of I choose gets denied again and again, and the brain learns this really unhelpful lesson.
Like, why bother choosing or planning? It won't matter anyway.
Precisely. My will gets overridden. And this apparently impacts the default mode network in the brain, the part involved in self-reflection, future planning.
So if that network learned that your plans get ignored, it just doesn't bother engaging for future stuff you're supposed to lead on.
Kind of, yeah. It's like the planning system goes offline for self-directed responsible action. It's a root of that avoidance, that feeling of just not being able to initiate.
Okay, so forcing yourself now would just replay that old pattern. The solution has to be different.
Completely. It's not about trying to magically delete the past pain. It's about re-signifying it, giving it a new meaning now.
Re-signifying. Okay, how do you actually do that? What are the steps?
Well, one technique mentioned is writing a timeline, looking back at those times you felt forced or powerless. But the key is, you acknowledge the lack of power then, but you consciously contrast it with the power and choice you have now.
So you're changing the memory from I was a victim to I survived that and now I choose.
Something like that, yeah. Shifting from victim memory to creator memory. Another big one is practicing small, daily choices. Really small stuff.
Like what you eat for breakfast.
Exactly. Or what you wear. Or how you organize one tiny corner of your desk. The point is to just consistently train the brain, I choose and I follow through. Or even just I choose and I get a result I wanted. Micro-level training.
And the sources say you need to celebrate these tiny choices. That feels a bit weird.
It does initially,
Yeah.
but it's crucial. You have to consciously acknowledge and appreciate these small acts of choosing for yourself. It tells your brain, see, choosing for myself doesn't lead to disaster or punishment anymore. It starts building that positive dopamine hit linked to your actions.
Ah, okay. Building the positive link we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And another really direct method is tackling one small thing that others usually step in on. Take full responsibility for it, see it through, and then consciously tell yourself, done, and I'm not dead.
Done equals not dead. That's stark, but I get it. It directly counters the old fear association.
Right. And related to that, maybe list things you've never really been responsible for because others handled them. Then start reclaiming them one by one. Taking them off the list helps rewire that dopamine link. I did this, I handled it, it feels okay, maybe even good.
Okay, so it's about rewriting the past meaning and building new positive pathways now. But what about that internal negativity, that voice that says it's still not enough or focuses on what could go wrong?
Yes. That brings us to the negative salience bias. Neuroscience shows our brains are just wired to pay way more attention, like 5 to 7 times more to negative stuff than positive. Old survival mechanism, you know, spot the threat.
Which means even if you are making progress, your brain might not naturally register it.
Exactly. And it's why waiting for external validation praise from others, perfect outcomes, is a trap. Your brain, with this bias, will likely always find something wrong or not enough if you're only looking outside. The limbic system just keeps scanning for problems.
So you can't rely on the outside world to make you feel okay about taking responsibility. How do you break that cycle?
Okay, the sources lay out some steps. Step 1, consciously decide to stop waiting for external feedback to be your main measure. Recognize it's unreliable for shifting your internal state.
Okay, cut that dependency. Step 2.
Step 2. Create your own micro wins and give yourself immediate internal feedback. You have to be the first one to notice your progress, even tiny things.
Like, just the act of sitting down to make a choice, even if it's hard, or noticing you started spiraling into negativity and stopping it.
Yes, exactly. Those are wins. Deciding is taking responsibility. Noticing your thoughts is reclaiming agency. You have to see it and acknowledge it internally first.
Right, be your own primary validator. Okay, step 3.
Step 3. Use positive self-talk immediately after you decide or act, before the negative bias can kick in hard. Train your brain with things like, okay, I choose this, I'm going to make it work, or I made a decision. That's progress. You're actively creating the positive loop.
Giving yourself the dopamine hit, basically.
You got it. And the final step, step 4. Intentionally look back and track the good outcomes from your past choices. Remind your brain of times when you chose something, maybe difficult, and it led to something better later.
Like leaving that toxic job eventually led to more peace, or starting that small habit made you feel stronger.
Exactly like that. You have to consciously connect the dots for your brain. My choice, my action, led to this positive result. Show it the evidence that choosing for yourself works.
This has been really illuminating. It shifts the whole conversation. Avoiding responsibility isn't some moral flaw. It's often, well, a really understandable pattern based on brain wiring and past experiences.
Absolutely, and understanding why it happens. Getting specific about these causes, the past pain, the identity mismatch, the overwhelm, the missing positive link, the learned helplessness, that understanding itself is powerful.
And then knowing you can actually remap its meaning from burden to choice, from duty to creation, that feels hopeful.
It is. And actively building those new neural pathways, being your own source of validation, celebrating those tiny wins. That's how you build the internal drive that was maybe missing before. Not by force, but by re-education.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Think about one small corner of your life where you feel that avoidance, that resistance to taking responsibility, just one small thing.
Yeah. And just consider how might understanding these deeper reasons and this idea of responsibility as your power to choose maybe change how you look at or even approach that one thing this week.